Good morning, my name is Josh from Cyclones Oz, and today we're going to be talking about the developing tropical low in the Northern Territory, and then we'll be talking about a developing tropical low also in the Coral Sea, which will likely be bringing some very heavy rainfall to the Queensland coastline. But we'll start things off with the Northern Territory system right now. Taking a look at it, it is firing up some very decent thunderstorm convection, and if it is going to develop into a tropical cyclone, it will likely do so tomorrow or maybe even tonight if it really gets its act going. But it is a low chance of formation right now, with a peak chance of 25% given by the Bureau of Meteorology for tropical cyclone formation. I personally don't think that it is going to happen. It is much more likely that it won't develop than it will develop, but considering the fact that it's fired up some very good convection, some very nice thunderstorm activity over the past 12 hours, and has gone from looking very unhealthy to looking actually quite healthy, I think that the system is a relatively hot shot of trying something quite unusual up here and becoming a tropical cyclone very late on in the season in late April. So yeah, we'll just have to watch and wait and see, because throughout the course of today, if it does continue to develop at the pace that it is developing, the chances of this becoming a tropical cyclone will be actually quite high. But I really don't foresee that being an option right now. In terms of maximum wind speeds, they're really not there. I mean, Cape Wessel, considering the proximity to the centre of circulation, which is currently located about here, you'd be expecting Cape Wessel to have winds of around 40 or 45 kilometres an hour at this time, even though they're not actually in the immediate kind of vicinity of the tropical cyclone. They're just kind of on the outer edges of this developing tropical low. The wind speeds are very low, which means that this system really doesn't have the wind speeds to qualify for even gale force at this time. The peak wind speeds around the centre are probably only about 40 or 45 kilometres an hour at this time, so really nothing crazy around the centre. They will likely be picking up over the course of today, but again, really a slim chance of this becoming a tropical cyclone. It will have all throughout tomorrow and into Sunday to develop and intensify, but I just don't see it happening before wind shear gets hold of it on Monday and it's blown to smithereens in the northern vicinity of the Gulf of Carpentaria, deeper into the Arafura Sea. It will be delivering some very heavy rainfall, however, so we do need to be keeping a close eye on that. But yeah, just taking a look at the system right now, even though it does have a developing low-level centre, which is swirling around just through here where the cursor is, and some pretty good convection. It's nothing crazy, but it is pretty good, especially for this time of the year. It is looking a little bit better than I did initially expect, and as such, I would say that 25% chance of tropical cyclone intensification might be a little bit on the kind of low side. I would maybe give it 35 or 40% personally, but it is still definitely more likely than not that this becomes or remains a tropical low and doesn't actually get to cyclone status. However, that's not going to stop some very heavy rainfall from falling along the Gulf of Carpentaria coastline, especially around Cape Wessel and then along the Cape York Peninsula. There'll be some very heavy rainfall over the next 3 and 4 days from this just kind of mess of thunderstorm activity, and we're talking rainfall accumulations over the next 3 days approaching 400 millimetres around the storm centre, but a much lighter 25 to 50 millimetres over the Cape York Peninsula, and at a worst case maybe 100 millimetres for Nullarbor and Cape Wessel, and that only increases very slightly on the 5-day forecast and very slightly again on the 10-day forecast. There really isn't much rainfall expected along land areas, especially from this developing tropical cyclone / tropical low. It is going to be over the Gulf of Carpentaria. However, if you were going to see a splot like this, 450 millimetres over land, especially in late April, you're talking a very high amount of rainfall falling. Even for any time of the year, that's a huge amount of rainfall that could be falling, but if this was to get itself over the Cape York Peninsula, you'd be seeing some very significant flooding. But I don't think the storm is going to have the motion to really do that. It is going to be staying very, very still. It's very comfortable where it is right now, and it will not be moving far over the next couple of days. In terms of rainfall for far North Queensland, nothing crazy either. I mean, 100 millimetres around the Daintree or up to 150 millimetres, and that's kind of over the next 3 days by the looks of things. There will be some pretty significant rainfall there today. Some very heavy showers are currently streaming ashore up in the Daintree area north of Port Douglas and between Cooktown, and that will continue throughout the course of today, but they should be missing Cairns and Innisfail and that sort of area further south, but definitely around Port Douglas and into the Daintree, Mount Carbine. Expect up to 200 millimetres throughout the course of today, because there will be some more significant rainfall streaming in ashore from the Coral Sea, which is very unwanted about now, especially up there, considering how much rainfall they have had this year so far. But I mean, you're talking some pretty heavy rain showers that are streaming ashore, and they will continue to come ashore throughout the course of today. So that is a little bit unfortunate at this time. But yeah, I mean, wow, some actually very heavy rainfall fell last night, especially around the Cairns area, but around Cape Tribulation and Port Douglas. That's caught me off guard pretty significantly. I highlighted the possibility of that occurring, but I mean, it is really bad throughout the course of today, and it will be continuing throughout today and into this evening, and maybe even into early tomorrow morning as well. But hopefully easing off then. Yeah, easing off by Saturday morning by the looks of things. Still some showers up there, but yeah, it's really right now at the worst of the rainfall, and that will hopefully be easing off over the course of today. But still some very heavy rainfall is streamed ashore there, and please leave a weather report for your location in the comment section down below. Now, I've been talking Coral Sea tropical low, Coral Sea tropical low, Coral Sea tropical low, Coral Sea tropical low for the past couple of days. Very repetitive. However, we still do have that tropical low on the forecast that'll be developing somewhere down offshore from the Sunshine Coast by this weekend, or later on into this weekend, and that is reciprocated amongst the Eastern River and the Axis G3 model quite well. This is going to be a big sort of monsoonal burst of moisture by the looks of things that's going to take hold probably from Saturday evening onwards, and be driving rainfall accumulations up from Saturday morning or even Friday evening this evening along the Sunshine Coast especially, and up towards Rockhampton and into the Wide Bay area. There will be some heavy rainfall throughout the course of tomorrow morning, but really starting to pick up steam from tomorrow evening, where we could be seeing some strong thunderstorms inland, possibly severe as well by the looks of things, and some very heavy rainfall around Bundaberg and Gladstone as well. Brisbane might miss out on the worst of it, but still some very heavy rainfall is possible inland around Billawilla and up towards Taroom, Rockhampton. Dingo, Rolleston and Emerald as well could be receiving some heavy rainfall over the next 48 hours, and that's from this tropical low that's going to be developing around some of these reefs offshore from Mackay and Townsville on the Whitsundays and the Sunshine Coast. It's not going to get to cyclone status by the looks of things. It might throw up cyclone wind gusts briefly, but yeah, it's just going to be too stretched and not cyclonic enough in terms of rotation to be classifiable as a tropical cyclone. And if it does get classified as a tropical cyclone, it will happen Saturday evening or Sunday morning. So it will be a come from behind surprise system. But I just think it's going to be a strong batch of thunderstorms at this time, and definitely not cyclone impacts to the Queensland coastline either. It's just going to be that heavy rainfall, maybe some locally damaging wind gusts, especially on Fraser Island and some of the areas on the coast. There could be wind gusts up towards 60 or 70 kilometres an hour sustained for a few hours, and some significant wave heights as well, up towards 4 or 5 metres throughout the course of Sunday and then into Monday as well, as this low pressure system really does take hold offshore. But yeah, it's definitely going to be the rainfall that really does have the worst impact by the looks of things. You're talking maybe 100 millimetres Saturday afternoon and evening, and then a further 50 millimetres on top of that for some locations, totaling up towards 150 millimetres by the looks of things just outside of Noosa or Caloundra, some of those areas on the Sunshine Coastline. The Axis G3 model, not as bullish in terms of rainfall. The GFS has always been kind of the more bullish one in terms of rainfall, but again, they've sort of backed it off a little bit. And the Icon model as well, which we haven't talked about on this channel for quite a while, not calling for too much rainfall. But if I was to make a guess at this time, I would expect for Brisbane maybe 25 to 50 millimetres, and then inland for some communities between Emerald down towards Toowoomba, and then further east of the line from that rather, you're probably talking up towards 100 millimetres Saturday night. So some very heavy rainfall is possible there, and we'll have to be watching the rivers through there, because they are already very close to their minor flooding alerts, considering how much moisture is already in their catchments. So any further rainfall on that could be pushing certain rivers up towards the minor or the moderate flooding alert. And that's something else that we should be watching up in far North Queensland as well today, is the fact that rivers do have the chance to get up towards the minor or the moderate flooding alerts, maybe even the major flooding alerts, just because of the rainfall that they've received last night. In terms of activity for the South Pacific, I wouldn't really be expecting any of these systems to go tropical cyclone. One might very briefly, but it's going to be a very messy and an ugly looking system by the looks of things. And yeah, just once again, a very difficult forecast all round to be making on these systems through here throughout the course of next week. And it's going to kind of be a play it by ear sort of situation, where we're just going to have to watch and wait and see. In terms of impacts, the worst case scenario sort of wind gusts up to 100 kilometres an hour. They are not going to be strong cyclones. It's not a case where we've got an unpredictable Category 4 cyclone on the loose here. It's a case where we've got a very messy monsoonal tropical low sort of on the loose here, which could be dumping some significant rainfall. So it's not a worst case scenario, but still quite an unpleasant forecast to be making, especially because I can't be giving the details on what is needed up here. In terms of other interesting weather around the nation, to wrap things up here, rainfall accumulation just looks stock standard around the country. There are actually some pretty significant rainfall accumulations across Western Australia, but not reciprocated amongst the forecast models. In other words, not worth my time to cover it. The Axis is also calling for some pretty significant rainfall along the New South Wales coastline in the next 5 to 10 days, I believe. Yeah, 5 to 10 days, and that might mean some kind of East Coast low type system late next week and into early next weekend, which could be driving rainfall accumulations up between Sydney and up towards Coffs Harbour. But considering it's not really supported by other forecast models in the sense that it is forecasted by the Axis G3, I wouldn't be betting my life savings on it right now, and it's again going to be a wait and see sort of situation. But just a heads up that next weekend might be a wet one for the New South Wales coastline around Sydney, Newcastle, up towards Taree and at Coffs Harbour as well, so we'll have to wait and see on that one. Nothing weird in terms of temperatures, but certainly going to be some cooler weather for Western Australia finally, after a little bit of a hot run that we've had over the past couple of days. Got to 34 yesterday and was quite unpleasant, that's for sure. A big day shopping by myself, shopping for furniture. But yeah, it was an unpleasant day outside in the sun, walking up towards cars carrying couches and flat packs and so forth. So yeah, glad to have the heat on the forecast. Well, not on the forecast anymore because it is starting to draw away. But yeah, that basically does it for today's weather forecast. I keep on saying it, but we're definitely in this changeover period now where the weather becomes boring in the tropics and boring in southern Australia. So there's really not too much to be talking about in these videos. But yeah, really not too much to be talking about around the weather around the nation. That's why I'm trying to branch out into more forecasty type videos or education type videos. And I am working on a couple behind the scenes, but just not feeling it, to be honest. I just love making these forecast updates more than anything else. And if there's anything you want in these videos, then please do leave it in the comment section down below. But that is all that I have time for. A special shout out to the channel sponsors. Their names on screen right now. Their support really does mean a lot, and I couldn't be uploading these videos without these guys. But yeah, I mean, just look at this picture right now of Australia. It is remarkably dry in the next 10 days. But that is all from me, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.